dear friends, we are brought here together by another tragedy.
Sorry.
I grew up in this city. I'm proud to be a Canadian. I'm proud to have served my country in places like Afghanistan, in places like Russia. And when I arrived in Moscow in 1993, there were still Democrats in Russia. Some of them even got elected to the State Duma. Some of them even got places in the government. Yes, it was a corrupt government. Yes, it was a government. Those were governments that didn't deliver much for the people of Russia. And they certainly didn't do much for peace and security in the world, because there has never been peace in or around Russia since the breakup of the Soviet Union. There have been 2 wars in Chechnya. There's been support for war in Armenia and Azerbaijan. There's been support for war in Transnistria. But there were a few. And ladies and gentlemen, let us agree that they were a heroic few who took the words democracy, freedom, human rights, and the rule of law seriously in Russia, and who thought that Russians should live by those values and those principles because they are universal principles. And I'm proud to say that Boris Nemtsov, Boris Yefimовich Nemtsov, was one of our friends, one of Canada's friends, one of my friends, and he was one of those people. He was a parliamentarian. He was a fierce defender of human rights. He was a very educated person, a governor, a deputy prime minister, and then he tried to lead new parties that would be truly democratic. Правое дело, Союз правых сил, Parnas? That's the new one. He wasn't so much involved in Yabloko. That was another man's party. But ladies and gentlemen, those were noble attempts to try to bring the system of government we love and the system of government we are fighting to protect in Ukraine, and the system of government that the world knows is the only way to unleash human potential, to bring prosperity for more, for many, and to keep power out of the hands of an unscrupulous few. And today we are here to mourn Boris Yefimовich Nemtsov as Canadians because he died for those principles. He was killed for his commitment to democracy, for his commitment to freedom and the rule of law, for his commitment to go to a demonstration like this one that he had helped to organize himself in central Moscow, to exercise his simple right to assemble with others who thought like him. And he was gunned down on that bridge, a stone's throw from the Kremlin, for daring to oppose the power of a man and a regime that have become synonymous with violations of the rule of law, that have become synonymous with threats to international peace and security, even in Europe today in 2015. This was probably the most prominent Russian leader, still free up until a few days ago, who was prepared to call the war in Ukraine by its real name. It is an invasion, it is an occupation, it is the illegal annexation of Crimea, and no democracy, no democratic people will ever accept it. Boris Nemtsov was with us, and we will remember him for his courage. Позвольте мне сказать немножко по-русски. Потому что здесь, на своей земле, я имею обычай адресовать свои слова напрямую Путину. Let me say a few words in Russian because I have the habit, speaking here on my home ground, to address a few words directly to Putin.
We are recording.
In the language that he understands. You're absolutely right about that. He understands force, perhaps only, but he knows, probably more directly than any of us, that the only real power in this world is in the minds and the hearts of people. And when we come together to tell Putin what we think of his disastrous regime, of his trampling of human rights and international law, we are tapping into the greatest force that we know of on this earth. Так что господину Путину я адресую эти слова тебе. Вам пора остановить вашу войну на Украине. Вам пора убраться с Украины. Господин Путин, руки прочь с демократической Украины. Mr. Putin, it's time for you to stop your illegal war in Ukraine. It's time for you to get out of Ukraine. And it is time for you to keep your hands off of the territory of other sovereign states. Пора тоже остановить убийство тех на российской территории, которые убивают из-за того, что они оппозиционеры. It's time to stop the killings of those in Russia who die only because they are opposition figures, only because they are Democrats. Борис Немцов был не первым с этого ряда. Мы вспоминаем Анну Политковскую.
О, да.
Мы вспоминаем Литвиненко. И всех, которые... Магнитского, Сергея. Список продолжается, список длинный, к сожалению. Но мы их всех вспоминаем, и мы их считаем нашими союзниками, нашими единомышленниками. We will not stop, Mr. Putin, until the killings of Democrats, the killings of those that share our values stop in Russia, until the invasions of Ukraine, and not so many years ago of Georgia, stop under that have taken place because of your hand. We will not rest until democracy is once again defended openly, courageously, by those as brave as Boris Yefimovich Nemtsov, for the sake of Russia and the Russian people, for the sake of Ukraine and independent Ukraine and the Ukrainian people, and for the sake of the international peace that we Canadians will always fight fiercely to defend. Так что мы скорбим Немцова, но у нас очень прямой язык к Путину. Пора убраться с Украины, пора остановить диктатуру в России, пора вернуть свободу слова россиянам, пора Путину, и весь мир постепенно объединяется в оппозиции тебе. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to honor a great man who died in a great cause. We are here because we will not stop calling the war in Ukraine by its name. We are here because we will not stop calling for human rights in Russia, freedom of speech in Russia, a return to democracy in Russia, and respect for borders and to territorial integrity in Ukraine and everywhere else. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your support for what Canada is doing as one nation to speak strongly for the independence of Ukraine, for the end to this savage war, and let us never hesitate to speak strongly about the man whose regime has become synonymous with tragedies like this.
God bless Canada!
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Canada! 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 Thank you, Canada!
Thank you for your tireless commitment to this cause. We will be doing this again and however often we need to do it until these battles are won. God bless Canada. Slava Ukraini. And God bless, one day, a free Russia.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris.